Well, I'll tell you about my father's family first.
Okay.
They were Burrs of Boston, an old Boston family, engaged in banking for about a century. My great-grandfather was a bank president, and his son, and
So they were bankers all the way back.
well, for 100 years or so.
And no exceptions.
Oh, bless my soul. No, in direct line, no. Out of the
That's what I meant.
They had been in Boston for several, since 1636 or so, been in the Boston area.
For $10,000, who should... Excuse me? I'm afraid your time is almost up. I'm sorry, maybe next time.
Got milk?
My mother's family were also old Boston, the Thayers, and the original Thayer was a Unitarian minister in Lancaster, Mass., and he was paid $400 a year and 200 weight of potatoes. His son eventually became one of the richest people in the United States and in the world. Nathaniel Thayer, working in a bank, again, in Boston, and by means of hard work and being a very upright soul, whom everyone trusted, he made a vast amount of money in bonds and mortgages and that sort of dull stuff. And so my mother's family, who inherited this, my grandfather Thayer was a son of Nathaniel Thayer. And so my mother's family was exceedingly rich. Had something like 20 servants and about 30 horses, and an enormous setup of horses. They had 3 men to take care of the horses alone, and a vast amount of inside and outside help beside that. We grew up in Needham, where I was born. I was born in the house that we lived in, and my father moved to Needham about 1913 or so, and built his own house on a 30-acre lot in Needham, South Street, which is now no longer existing, to my sorrow. Lovely old house with about 30 rooms, but difficult to heat, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I grew up with 3 brothers and a sister, and we were very privileged kids, but we were very active inside and out. My oldest brother, Francis Hadnor Hooks, was a good scholar, a very highly intelligent person, became a lawyer, corporation lawyer, and did very well in life. My sister married a boy named Hobart Spaulding. He never did anything in his life, really. He worked for the State Department during the war in Peru, but everybody had a job doing something of that sort. And following that, he just took care of his own money, which was a vast amount. My brother Johnny married an extremely rich person, and I guess I was the only one that didn't make a good money match. But I've been satisfied, nevertheless. My mother was a very unusual and gutsy person. She was fairly small, blonde, blue-eyed, and a great enthusiast for horses. She was a real equestrian. She also was a master of foxhounds, as you can tell by the picture in the library. My mother raised us along with help. We had, I guess, three maids and a nursemaid for the kids. So there was 4 inside. We had a chauffeur, and we had 2 men who worked outside. Well, being upper class is an attitude and a way of life. It shouldn't have anything to do with economics, except that if you have the way of life, it's very hard to be poor and be upper class. But it's used as an economic thermometer nowadays, whereas it shouldn't be at all. In my days, if you were an old family from Boston, you may not have much money at all. But nowadays, upper class consists of spivs and people like Lady Gaga and people who have a lot of money and a lot of splash. That's the upper class. Well, I'm not sure who the upper class is now. In the old days, we used to know. In the old days, it was the social register, which is a little bit pathetic now, you know. You're in the social register, did you know that? Yes, you are.
I'm flabbergasted.
You're always flabbergasted by the unconventional.
But in a family like this one,
Not everyone chooses their religion to satisfy Debrets.
Specific to the United States, the social register is a directory of names and addresses of prominent American families who form the social elite. Inclusion in the social register has historically been limited to members of polite society or those with old money. Within the social register cities of Baltimore, Boston, Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, New Orleans, New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Portland, Providence, San Francisco, Seattle, and Washington, D.C., as well as ones for southern cities.
Dr. and Mrs. I. Tucker Burr. That's my grandparents. Stephen is an uncle. Duncan's one of my uncles. So my grandpa was actually wrong. I'm not in the social register. It's not a big deal. In the words of my grandpa.
I couldn't care less.